So, TCP/IP protocol suite. Today, the TCP/IP protocol suite includes many protocols. Some of more popular ones are the individual protocols organized in the layer using the TCP/IP protocol model. Application, transport, internet, and the network access layer. The TCP/IP protocols are specific to the application, transport, and internet layers. The network access layer protocols are responsible for delivering the IP packet over the physical medium. The lower layer protocols are developed by various standards organizations. The TCP/IP communication process. Uh, so, um, the animation begins with the web server preparing the hypertext markup language, or the HTML, has been as data to be sent. The application protocol HTTP header is added from the front of the HTML data. The header contains various information including the HTTP version. The server is using the status code indication. It has information for web client. The third one is the HTTP application layer protocol. Delivers the HTML formatted web page for to do the transport layer. The TCP transport layer protocol is used to manage individual conversation. In this example, between the web server and the web client. The next is the IP information is added into the front of the TCP information. IP assigned in the appropriate source and destination IP addresses. This information is known as the IP packet. Next is the Internet protocol. Adds information to both ends of the IP packet, known as data link frames. These frames delivered to nearest routers along the path toward the web client. This router removes the Ethernet information, analyzes the IP packet, determines the best path for the packet, insert the packet into the new frame, and send it to the next neighboring router towards the destination. Next one, this data is now transported through the internetwork, which consists of media and intermediary devices. Next is the Ethernet information is processed and removed, followed by the IP protocol information, the TCP information, and finally, the HTTP information. Last one is the web page information is then passed into the client's web browser software. Open standards. Open standards encourage interoperability, competition, and innovation. They also guarantee that no single company product can monopolize the market or have an unfair advantage over its competition. Internet standards. Standard organizations are usually vendor neutral, non-profit institutions established to develop and promote the concept of open standards. Various organizations have different responsibilities for prompting and creating standards for the TCP/IP protocol. So, Electronic and Communication Standard Organization. Other standard organizations have responsibilities for promoting and creating the electronic and communication standards used to deliver the IP packet as electronic signals over a wired or wireless medium. Reference models. The benefits of using the layered model. The benefits to using a layered model to describe network protocols and operation includes assisting in protocol design, fostering competition because products from different vendors can work together, preventing technology or capability changes in one layer from affecting other layers above and below, providing a common languages to describe networking function and capabilities. The OSI reference model. The OSI model provides an extensive list of functions and services that can occur at each layer. It also describes the interaction of each layer with the layers directly above and below. The TCP/IP protocols discussed in the course and structured around both the OSI and the TCP/IP models. The TCP/IP protocol model for inter-network communication was created in early 1970s and sometimes referred to as Internet model. It defines 4 categories of functions that must occur for communication to be successful. The architecture of the TCP/IP protocol suite follows the structure of this model. Because of this, the Internet model is commonly referred to as the TCP/IP model. The OSI model and TCP/IP model comparison. The protocol that make up the TCP/IP protocol suites can be described in terms of the OSI reference model. In the OSI model, the network layer and the application layer of the TCP/IP model are further divided to describe discrete functions that must occur at these layers. So, data encapsulation, message segmentation. In theory, a single communication such as a music, video, or an email messages could be sent across a network from a source to a destination as one massive uninterrupted stream of bits. Protocol data units. As application data is passed down to the protocol stack on its way to be transmitted across the network media, various protocol information is added at each level. This is known as the encapsulation process. Encapsulation example is when sending messages on a network. The encapsulation process works from the top to bottom. At each layer, the upper layer information is considered data within the encapsulated protocol. For example, the TCP segment considered data within the IP packet. De-encapsulation. This process is reversed at the receiving host and is known as de-encapsulation. De-encapsulation is the process used by a receiving device to remove one or more protocol header. The data is encapsulated as it moves up to the stack towards the end user application. Data access, the network addresses. The network and data link layers are responsible for delivering the data from the source device to the destination device. Data link addresses. Data link or layer 2 physical addresses has different role. The purpose of data link address is to deliver the data link frame from one network interface to another network interface on the same network. Device on the same network. To understand how devices communicate within a network, it is important to understand the role of both the network layer addresses and the data link addresses. Device on a remote network. When the sender of the packet is on a different network from the receiver, the source of of the destination of the IP address will represent hosts on different networks. This will be indicated by the network portion of the IP addresses of the destination host, and that is the role of the network layer addresses. So that's all for the summary of the chapter 3, and thank you. So hi everyone, we're back for a new video, and for this video we're going to summarize this given chapter, which is the chapter 3, network protocols and communications. So let's start. Rules of communication. For the rules, we have the communication fundamentals. A network can be as complex as devices connected across the internet, or as simple as two computers directly connected to one another with a single cable and and anything in between networks can vary in size, shape, and function. However, simply having a wired or wireless physical connection between end devices is not enough to enable communication for the communication to occur. Device must know how to communicate. Rule establishment. Before communicating with one another, individuals must use establishment rules. Establish rules or agreements to govern the conversation. For example, protocols are necessary for effective communication. These rules or protocols must be followed in order for the message to be successfully delivered and understood. Protocols must account for the following requirements: an identified sender and receiver, common language and grammar, speed and timing of delivery, confirmation of or acknowledgement requirements. Message encoding. One of the first steps to send the message is encoding. Encoding is the process of converting information into another acceptable form for transmission. Decoding reverses this process in order to interpret the information. Message formatting and encapsulation. When a message is sent from a source to destination, it must use a specific format or structure. Message format depends on the type of messages and the channel that is used to deliver the message. Letter writing is one of the most common forms of writing human communication. For centuries, the grid formation format for personal letters has not changed. In many cultures, a person letter contains the following elements: an identifier of the recipient, a salutation or greeting, the message content, closing phrase, and the identifier of the sender. Message size. Another rule for communication is size. When people communicate with each other, the messages that they send are usually broken into smaller parts or sentences. These sentences are limited into size or what the person can process at one time. An individual conversation may be made up of many smaller sentences to ensure that each part of these messages is received and understood. Imagine what it would like to read discourse if all appeared in one long sentences. It would not be easy to read and comprehend. So, the message timing. These are the rules of engagement for message timing. Access method, flow control, and the response timeout. For the access method, we have determine when someone is able to send message. If two people talk at the same time, a collision of information occurs and it is necessary for the two to back off and start again. Likewise, it is necessary for computers to define an access method. Hosts on a network need to access method to know when to begin sending messages and how to respond when collision occur. Flow control. Timing also affects how much information can be sent and the speed that it can be delivered. If one person speaks too quickly, it is difficult for the other person to hear and understand the messages. In the network communication, source and destination hosts use flow control method to negotiate correct timing for successful communication. While the response timeout is if a person asks a question and does not hear a response within an acceptable amount of time, the person assumes that no answer is coming and reacts accordingly. The person may repeat the question or may go on with the conversation. Hosts on the network also have rules that specify how long to wait for responses and what action to take if a response timeout occurs. Message delivery option. A message can be delivered in different ways, as shown. Sometimes when a person wants to communicate information to a single individual. At other times, the person may need to send information to a group of people at the same time, or even all of the people in the same area. So for the protocols, rules that govern communication. A group of interrelated protocols necessary to perform a communication function is called a protocol suite. Protocol suites are implemented by host and networking devices in software and hardware or both. Network protocols. At the human level, some communication rules are formal and other are simply understood based on custom and practice for device. For devices to successfully communicate, a network protocol suites must be described precise requirement and interaction. Networking protocol define a common format and set of rules for exchanging messages between devices. Some common networking protocols are Hypertext Transfer Protocol or the HTTP, the Control Protocol, the TCP, and the Internet Protocol or the IP. Protocol interaction. Communication between a web server and web client is an example of an interaction between several protocols. The protocol shown is the HTTP and the TCP, IP, and the Ethernet. The HTTP is a application protocol that governs the way a web server and the web client interact. HTTP defines the content and informating of the request and response that are exchanged between the clients and server. Both the client and the web server software implemented the HTTP as the part of the application. The TCP is the transport protocol that manages the individual conversation. It divides the HTTP messages into smaller pieces. The IP, on the other hand, is responsible for taking the formatted segments from TCP, encapsulating them into packets, assigning them the appropriate addresses, and delivering them into the destination host. The Ethernet, it is a network access protocol that describes two primary functions, communication over a data link and the physical transmission of data on the network media. Network access protocol are responsible for taking packets from the IP and the formatting them to be transmitted over the media. Protocol suites and industry standards. A protocol suites is a set of protocol that work together to provide a comprehensive network communication service. A protocol suite may be specified by a standard organization or developed by a vendor. Protocol suites like the Forge can be a bit overwhelming. However, this course will only cover protocols of the TCP/IP protocol suites. The development of TCP and IP. The first packet switching network in the predecessor to today Internet was the Advanced Research Project Agency Network or the ARPANET, which came to life in 1969 by connecting mainframe computers at four locations. ARPANET was funded by the U.S. Department or Defense for the use of universities and research laboratories.